Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Rachel Platt. Rachel helps leaders turn people challenges into growth opportunities. She's a CEO of Platinum Consulting, where she builds practical HR and culture solutions for delivering real results. For over 20 years, Rachel has guided small and medium-sized businesses through growth, change, and transformation. Her clients become stronger leaders, hire better talent, and create cultures where employees thrive. Rachel's also a certified HR executive, speaker, and trusted advisor on inclusion and leadership. Her work combines strategy with a human touch and a little fun too. I've asked her to join us here today to share her story and how people strategy drives business success. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have you. We've had some good conversations. The sun is shining over there. It's coming up over here. But before we get into sort of the HR business growth stuff, I want to kind of ask, how did you even get into this? Were your parents in this field of HR? Are you just kind of carrying the family torch?
No, not at all. Does anybody grow up wanting to be in HR? I don't think so. I'm not even sure I knew what it was. My parents were entrepreneurs, but I was always really fascinated by the business of people and recognized when I was in undergraduate business school that you can talk about all of these different models. You can talk about automation, you can talk about systems and processes, and what does it take? At the end of the day, it's all about the people that work there. Um,
Mm,
and so I really always found that to be the foundation. And I think people are fascinating. They do strange things. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, huh, did you come to work and think that was going to be a good idea? So it's never boring. I can tell you
yeah,
that.
I love
Never
that.
boring.
And that's you're really hitting the nail on the head because in a lot of ways, people just want to sit on a beach and have money appear in their bank account to a certain extent. And let me tell you, it only lasts for a week or two. And then you start craving some sort of purpose, significance, and meaning. I got to travel the world a couple of times over. And when you do it on your own, at some point, you're like, this is great. In the beginning, you're like, I'm free and you travel. But at some point, you want someone to share it with. Life is empty without people to share it with. It really is. Loneliness is
And
not
feeling
good
like you're
for
doing
people.
something bigger than yourself, like you're giving back something, you're contributing something.
Yeah,
And
we are made for cooperation. That's something Marcus Aurelius in his book Meditation says. We are made for cooperation, like hands and feet. Like we are social creatures. So it's all about the people. It's all about the people. I love that. I love that so much. And people forget about that. We've come into a world, and I don't know what you think, kind of skipping into stuff, but I heard about, I don't know if it's real, but it's called the Peter Principle. You get promoted to
of
your
course,
highest level of incompetence. You do a
yes,
great job as a
happens all
sales
the
rep,
time.
so they make you a sales team lead, and you do a great job as a team lead, so they make you a sales manager, and you do a great manager, so they hire you as a regional manager, and you suck at that, so they leave you there because they can't promote you and they can't demote you.
Yes, that is real and that happens. And every organization, unfortunately, that I've ever worked with, worked for, know people who have ever worked with, there are cases of that happening. Um,
Mm,
and we need to be investing in our people to give them the skills necessary to do the next job. We can't just assume that because you've done this really well, that you're going to be able to do the next thing really well.
yeah,
You may have the foundation, but let's actually give you the tools and the skills to be
yeah,
able to do it.
yeah. I love that. And I remember I did this thing when I had a martial arts school and this exercise, and they had us write down all the things that we remember in our favorite like coaches in martial arts and all the things we think a great coach has to have. And it was like all of them were learnable skills. There wasn't anything that was inherent, like, you're born with or not. And I think that's a lot of life. It can be learned, things can be learned. But yeah, I want to backtrack a bit. So what are some of the challenges for you? I mean, obviously, how did you get into this? I remember I checked your education. Would you go to school for?
I was in the business school. I went to undergraduate business school. I got my start in recruiting. And I really got hooked on the concept of, oh my goodness, if I do a good job and help someone to land a job, that builds their whole life.
Mm.
That gives them the money to support their family, the an aspect of purpose in their life, hopefully not the only purpose in their life, but it gives them helping people to find a great job, maybe that they've been aspiring to for a long time, maybe just the job that's going to put food on the table. Like I saw a lot of value in that,
Mhm.
but not too long. I mean, I did it for several years and really enjoyed it. And I had a boss who I was working for a very large organization at the time, and I kept asking about internal transfers and how do we train, getting back to how do you promote from within, and how are we going to grow these people, and how are we going to develop these people, and why can't we take someone who and give them the skills to do this next level job so that they are growing, building, making more money, all of those things. And finally, my boss was like, look, your job is to recruit from the outside. If you want to be having all of these conversations, you need to move out of recruiting and you need to move over to the HR side where we were dealing with much more employee relations, all of this. I thank that boss every day for seeing something in me that I didn't even know was an opportunity. And I have tried to pay it forward ever since.
I love that. So you really found a calling, like a love for people and a passion for nurturing them. And then you found a way to make it a career.
Yeah, but don't be fooled only because I'm not, this is not going to sound nice, but I'm a business person. I am looking at how to use human capital to maximize the success of that individual and their personal life and have an impact on the bottom line of the business. This is not woo woo like, yay, let's all get together and sing Kumbaya.
But
This
yeah,
is let's really have business metrics and let's figure out how to align our people's strategy, the expectations that we have for them, give them clarity about what our mission is and what our goals are and what our expectations are. And let's actually have metrics that are established and that we're measuring to make sure that we're making the right business decisions.
I like that. That's power. I mean, it's powerful. It's the whole point of competitive sports, right? To refine skills and to figure out not even just for the individual, but for the sport itself. Sports evolve. What works best? How do we perform at our highest here? Growth. I love that. So, what were some of your biggest challenges? Do you just jump into HR and the pearly gates opened and the heavens, the clouds parted?
No,
Rachel has arrived, and it was
no, the heart stars and rainbows did not fall from the sky. It is tough to deal with, to learn to deal with people who have very different backgrounds and experiences from what you have. Things that I value may not be things that others value. And it's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just different.
right.
And really understanding for yourself how to build those skills, working with leaders to make sure that they are building skills, seeing people's strengths, focusing on building resiliency and having the ability to pivot when changes need to happen in the business. Oh man, that has happened to me so many times where I may have had the same job title, may have been working for the same company, but my job and my role switched and ebbed and flowed so many times over the course of my career.
Mm,
I loved that because I got to experience so many things. But did it come easy? No,
right.
no. Lots of learning by fire hose,
Right.
lots of, lots of being in the trenches and figuring out how to do it because you don't know, and frankly, nobody knows. And so you figure it out. You just
Mm.
buckle down and figure it out.
So, what would you recommend who's starting out or struggling with HR? They, They're like, I need to hire more people. Do I make an org chart? Do I put up an ad? What would you recommend as someone that's, work in the same situation, or I've got a team, do I hire somebody new? Do I grow the team? What would you recommend to someone starting out or
I
struggling?
mean, there are so many nuances in what you're saying, but what I always recommend is you need to start slowly. You need to really think before you go to hire someone, promote someone, whatever the case may be, is you need to really think not just what are the tasks that need to get done and like, can the person check those off, but what are the values that person needs to have? What will it take for that person truly to be successful? If you put the time in up front to determine those things, not doing it on the fly, not doing it after you've already hired someone, not doing it in the middle of an interview, but you really do that in advance. And then you plan your interview process around those success
Mm.
factors. So you assign people actual roles so that not everybody is asking the same question, so that people know what topic, what competencies do we want this person to have? And hey, Daryl, you're going to ask about curiosity, and you're going to ask, this other person's going to ask about management style or whatever the topics may be, but so that you're being systematic and this is repeatable behaviors so that you can understand with all of your candidates, okay, who's got what? Who needs development in an area? Nobody comes in perfect. Nobody, frankly, ever is perfect.
Right.
But if you spend the time up front to really identify what it's going to take for someone to be successful, and then interview for that, and then onboard people with those thoughts in mind, and rewarding them for hitting milestones, giving them training around those things that it's going to take to be successful. Some of that is technical skills, some of that is power skills. That's my personal name for soft skills. They're not
Hmm.
soft
Yeah,
skills.
they're
Having
not. They're
empathy and
vital.
compassion.
They're vital.
They're vital. These are power skills. So that's what I would tell someone to do. It doesn't matter whether you're hiring from the outside or hiring from the inside. Take your time up front so that you can make a smart hire that will have an impact on your team. You don't want everyone to think the same way. You don't want
Mm.
everyone to, and you don't want somebody who's going to cause immediate conflict either. So you've got
Right.
to think about these things.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, it only takes one turd in the punch bowl for everyone to not want to drink it.
Yeah.
I say it to my daughter. How when I say stuff, I forget. Like I don't have an example, but I'll be like, "Well, how much pee would you want in your drink?" And she goes,
Right.
"Fine." Because sometimes she's trying to squeak in something. Like I can get some extra can. I don't know what it is. I don't have a good example, but when it comes up, that's what I do. I'm like, "How much pee did you want in your drink today?" I don't want any. Okay, so it's an all
So we'll move on from
situation.
there.
Yeah, we'll move
Yeah.
on. We'll move on. But so what are some of the most important skills and behaviors for people to develop? And especially in today's sort of fast-paced, moving world. I don't know what it's about now, but I'm pretty sure prompt engineering wasn't a skill on the table 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's something,
Certainly not.
kind of everybody needs to know.
So I think it goes to the power skills. So it really is about empathy. It is about compassion. It is about your ability to adapt and flex your communication to your audience. It is about your ability to build relationships. It is your ability to have difficult conversations. Um, it really is, it so much of it comes down to being curious. And that's curious about what makes something work, what makes it not work, what makes this person tick, what makes this person upset, what is more efficient, what is less efficient. Just being curious about everything that is around you those are skills that cannot be replaced.
I love that. And that's, I've never thought of it that way in terms you say be curious. Because often when you have a difficult conversation, people are reactive and you're trying to convince or force someone to have your point of view. When you said to always be curious, what I heard when you said that was to take yourself out of the scenario, so to speak, and to just be curious about why they think that way, about
Yeah.
why they feel that way, about what it is that they're trying to accomplish or what they think they're going to get based off what they're doing, and to almost completely detach from the results and just maintain curiosity throughout the whole process. And I think there's extreme power in that.
There is the results that you can get by not attacking, but coming in from a place of curiosity. You can still have high expectations and hold people accountable, but no one has ever really been positively motivated by screaming at them, by telling them that they're dumb or whatever, whatever. It really, really does come down to, okay, tell me how you thought this was going to work. Tell me, could we try something? Explain to me, could we? That kind of language gets you to better success. The research shows it. You have to be candid. And, Courageous Conversations, great book. You have to be candid with somebody. You have to be clear that what they're doing is not meeting your expectations, is not working for whatever specific reason. But how that gets fixed, there very rarely is just one way to fix a problem.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love that. People don't realize how terrible they are at communicating and delegating, like in general. I
Yes.
remember I lived in Japan for 3 years, and I felt like I had so many communication breakdowns. I went to Japan, lived there for 3 years, and I studied Japanese for a year while I was there. My girlfriend at the time really wanted to learn Japanese, so we got a tutor and we were doing all this. And after 3 years, I remember on the flight back to Canada, where I'm from, I remember thinking, man, I can't wait to be back in Canada. Now that everybody speaks English, I'm not going to have so many issues communicating. And I remember being so befuddled, like my first 2 months back, I was having miscommunication. I'm like, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. What is going on? And I realized the language was actually the least of my concerns. It's not what you say, it's what other people
hear.
And people are also so bad at delegating. I mean, often a lot of business owners, they'll hire someone and they don't understand, especially in today's day and age. Like for my team, we've mandated that hybrid work, Mondays and Fridays on site. Team meetings are Monday and Thursday. And it's, and part of that is because there's like it's like a vegetable, invisible vegetable substance in the air that you can't really quantify in terms of training and communication and interaction, that when they're in the same room together, that you just don't get when it's over. You're not going to train an NBA World Championship team over Zoom. It's just not going to happen. I would almost bet my life that you're never going to have a team that are going to train in isolation over Zoom and that are going to go win an NBA champion. It's just not going to happen. And so you have to have that cohesion. Anyways, it comes back to what you were saying, that people don't fully understand how to communicate and how to delegate. There's so many people that are terrible at delegating. They forget. Yeah. I had a buddy, this is what I wanted to say. I had a buddy in Miami who had $1 million martial arts school. And when he first started out, he had done martial arts since he was a kid. So he was always very impressed, and he always kind of sought out someone that was better than him. And he's a kickboxer. So there's no real way of demonstrating you're better than someone than to kick him in the head, because they had to pass all their defenses and kick him in the head. So when he started his school, he wanted to make sure all his new students that showed up to the school wanted to know how good he was. So he made sure if he had a new student class, he made sure he kicked him in the head that class. And he couldn't figure out why people weren't coming back. And it's because he's kicking them in the head on their first day of class. And for us, we're like, duh. But we called it black belt eyes. He forgot what it was like to be doing something your first day when you're inexperienced and maybe a little, like, he was so detached. And so many business owners and managers and leaders, they forget what it's like and they have black belt eyes. That's the point I wanted to
I've
make.
never heard that expression, but it's true. And it leads to why it's so important to invest in those middle managers
Mm,
because they make or break the experience of your line workers, whatever the business is. Their direct supervisor has such an impact on their productivity, their morale, their mental health, their long-term retention, how they are treated. Are they listened to? Do they have any influence? Do they feel valued? Do they feel appreciated? Are they given opportunities to learn? Do they know how to give and receive feedback?
mm,
Positive feedback is just as, if not more important sometimes than redirecting feedback.
yep.
And so investing in your line managers is one of the most important things that any business owner or entrepreneur
Mm,
or leader can do.
yeah, that's a leverage point. It's a big
Bridge point, absolutely.
love that. So how do we
Yeah.
make money from this? How do you translate that into increased profits?
Oh, there's so many ways. HR is a growth lever. So let's look at how do we ramp someone up to being productive more quickly? How do we lower regrettable turnover? How do we have smoother customer service or customer deliverables? If a people initiative does not make one of those things better, then that's not or shouldn't be part of your people strategy because
Mm,
you are aligning with what your business goals are. And not having clarity creates confusion, creates
mm,
people running around like chickens with their heads cut off, doing what they think is important, but it's not actually having the impact that you want, need, or expect.
right.
So building clarity early, like not when you're in pain, not when you're in massive growth mode, but building true clarity. Who owns this decision? Who is responsible for this? What is the handoff to that? All of that pays you back in speed and scalability ultimately. So there
Mm.
is a real impact on a business's bottom line.
Are there stages in terms of employee size where different things become a priority?
Yes, of course. I mean, you can get by without written policies, for a really long time, particularly if you're a founder who's hiring friends and family. You're not necessarily hiring
That's a
for skill.
that's tough.
I'm not recommending it, trust me.
I'm like,
But
bro, hiring family, that's a tough road. Yep,
yeah,
correct.
that's it. Yeah. But the reality is, personally, I love working with leaders who want to grow and who care about the humans that they're working
Mm,
with and
mm,
recognizing, kind of like how we started this conversation, recognizing that what you invest in your employee is what they then invest back in society. And if you
mm.
think about it in that way, that if you put good out into the world, and again, I'm not trying to be woo-woo about this, that's my own term for,
Yeah.
like, the business data is there. If
Mm,
you invest in the people within your organization, your profitability is going to increase. When your profitability increases, if you reinvest some of that back, your employees are going to put that back into the community. And it is very much a righteous circle. We don't all have to be do-gooders, but it
mm,
really is about thinking about when and how you need to design your business, not now, but for where you want to be, because
mm.
it gets so much harder to do it when the clients are coming at you fast and furious,
Yep.
or the orders are due, or the deliverable, or whatever the case may be, whatever your service is, when you build your foundation on having a level of structure, and that does not mean that there's a rule and you can never do anything outside of the rules. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely not about that. But you definitely, the earlier you start with building systems that are repeatable and the leader is not the bottleneck in it and other people can replicate it, the better off you are for growing your business.
Yeah, you really hit a nail on the head. The will to win is the will to prepare. And
Yes.
systems scale, people don't. And so if it's not a repeatable system, and a system can be a checklist, it can be
Yeah.
automated, it can be step 1, step 2, step 3. But the problem is that if I'm trying to maintain quality control and I hire 50 different people and say, hey, we're baking blue. Well, I remember when I was in Africa, I spent 4 weeks in Kenya and 5 weeks in Uganda. And when I was in Uganda, there was this botanical hotel that I like to go to because I felt like the meals I got there were good and I just was comfortable because I was in a very different culture. But I remember when I went to the hotel one night, I ordered spaghetti and I got the spaghetti that I was like, man, this is like my mom's spaghetti. I love this. And then I went back a couple days later and the spaghetti had a green sauce. And I said,
What happened
oh,
here?
oh, it's a different chef tonight. I was like, oh. And then I realized that the meals I got on the menu, it was like that chef's blank. Like it wasn't that there was, this is how we make. I was like, oh, I'm getting whoever's cooking is here tonight on shift. That's it.
That's what your choices are. Yeah. We need to be a little bit more, as you're growing and scaling a business, we I'm not saying there can't be specials on the menu. There
Right.
definitely can. But like we need to have some repeatable processes and some clear expectations
Yeah.
for our employees so they know which end is up.
Well, and also if you think of it from the customer perspective, I'm paying for a result. Like I want a thing. And so how do you communicate for marketing and sales to communicate what the value? I mean, they say, the path to $1 million business is consistently selling a specific solution to a specific problem for a specific type of person. So if that's true, then you have to provide a specific solution. Like I wanted my mom's, spaghetti when I went. And this green sauce thing was cool and it was unique and it was minty and it's tasted great. That's fantastic. But that's not what I got before, and it was a lack of consistency, and that's ultimately why I stopped going there when I went, because I felt like I don't know what I'm going to get when I order stuff. And so the
Yep.
scalable, repeatable system thing is how do you onboard someone and how do you prep them to jump in and be set up for success? And then you figure out who does it best, and then you try to codify it through checklists and documentation and supporting it with software and stuff so it can scale. And then there's the human element as we figure out. I got two questions I want to hit at. So how does DEI fit into this? Let me throw a wild curveball at you.
Okay, let's do this. Regardless, I'm going to speak DEI globally. Okay. Let's not think about what is happening in the US right now. You're not in the US.
No.
You are not even, you're Canadian. My world is a US based world. But we're not talking US DEI. Let's not even use the DEI expression because you know what? It has become so politicized across the world in a way that is so unnecessary and so ridiculous. The reality is, let's be good human beings. Let us recognize that not everyone has had the same experiences, the same opportunities. We don't look the same, we don't talk the same, we don't sound the same, we have not had the same experiences, we have learned in different ways, and we can be better because of that.
Yeah.
We can solve problems faster and more creatively if it's not groupthink, if people can iterate off of each other. That is what diversity is actually about. And inclusion and belonging is about being a good human being. Like, it is about making space for others who are not like you and respecting that you don't know everything. That to me is being a good human. That is to me is being getting back to my be curious. Why do you believe that? Why do you think that? Why, how did you learn that? That's cool. I completely disagree, but I can do so respectfully. I
Sure,
can,
yeah.
I also am a huge believer that equity is critically important. Let us recognize that there are people who have not had the benefits that some of us have had. And everyone has not had the benefits that someone else has had. So we are all needing someone to create equitable situations, equitable environments, equitable distribution of things in order to create, in my opinion, a society that is more collaborative and is able to accomplish more for the good of humanity. I know
Sure.
that not everyone shares this opinion, and I am happy to
I agree with
debate.
everything you say. My question on this and my thought is, how do we adhere to those values? Because I think they're important. And I understand I was an orphan, so I fully understand, like, no one was paying my university bills. I didn't get to go to university. So I didn't have the same background a lot of my friends had, and I had to make up for that on my own. But I also am a devout believer in meritocracy, that the best person for the job. So for me, for example, if I want to be more DEI because I think that those values are great, I have to figure out, how do I juggle this? Because at one point, I got to perform in the real marketplace and I need to hire the best person for the job. So it's, I wonder, like, at what point is it DEI in terms of, there was just a post in Canada that really upset me, because there's a university that's posting for a math professor, and they exclusively in the job posting don't want men. That sounds like discrimination to me. And other people are, well, it's exclusivity. And I'm like, well, what happened to best person for the job? Why can't we just have the best person for the job? And I feel like the DEI part, that comes into the prep. Like, I'm not going to hire a lawyer that hasn't passed the bar exam. So, in that sense, you get what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't just, and that's where I think people get on top of each other's toes. It's because I think there's, like, someone like me, I think in some cases people might say, oh, he's not really into DEI, but I think I am. But I'm like, how do we juggle that part? Because there's a time and a place for everything. If I'm having an emergency and I need an ambulance, those people in that ambulance better know what they're doing. Like, I'm bleeding out. You know what I mean? And so for me, the DEI.
But I think it's a big assumption. I mean, we could have conversations about this for hours and hours, and I have a lot of passion
Sure.
around it. It is not my true area of expertise. To me, a lot of it comes down to the assumption that someone who was hired was not the most qualified just because they were a woman or a person of color or a member of the LGBTQ community or disabled, whatever the case may actually be. There is just this, I feel that a lot of people who are talking about DEI are talking about it in the context of the assumption that that person, because they are other in some way, was not qualified.
Yeah, that's
And
that's an important point. So it comes back to, how do we objectively try to measure it? And maybe some that's more important than others.
I
We're
don't
not going
think
to
I
solve
have
the
an
world.
answer.
Yeah, we're not going to solve the world's problems here. But I just wanted to bring that up, and I think it's important because I agree wholeheartedly. It's so easy to fly from one part of the planet to the other. And with Elon Musk plans for the BFR, that's supposed to at some point change it so you can get from one end of the world to the other in 45 minutes. It'll take you longer to load onto the thing than to get to the other side of the planet. You'll be able to travel anywhere on the planet in less than an hour once you're loaded and everything's ready to take off. That's kind of what.
Maybe not in our lifetime, but it will be curious.
we'll see. But that's where, so if it becomes easier to intermingle and to travel the world and we're working and collaborating across borders more, it's just an interesting question for that, because I think there's, like you said, there's different strengths and different skill sets, and diversity leads to stability. It's proven in ecosystems, it's proven in companies in terms of having a diversified portfolio of
Genetics.
services.
I mean, you name it.
Yeah, diversity leads stability. I get that 100%. But then we just got to figure out making sure that we achieve it. Like there's something that's a hot topic in Canada right now, and there's been a few really serious car accidents caused by truck drivers that are new to the country and that have made grossly erroneous, like one guy tried to make a U-turn by driving over the island. And that's just a mistake, and everybody makes mistakes. But there's also been an investigation that some of these people are getting hired because they're actually going to take the exam and they have an iPhone hidden in their shirt with a hole. And so, but then you've got this issue where some people are like, well, they need a fair chance like everyone else. But it's like, well, how do we make sure the training is better so they don't need to do that? Because everybody does deserve a fair shot, right? Everyone deserves to pursue their passion. Before this interview started, we talked about the spark of life, that at fertility clinics, they can measure the moment the sperm and the egg meet, that there's a spark of light. So everyone has a spark. You have a spark, I have a spark, the person listening to this has a spark, and that inner spark is a calling and a purpose. And so anyway, maybe I've gone too far down this road, but I was just curious your thoughts, because it's important. Like you say, we're trying to, in a business, it's tough because it's a competitive venture.
Yeah, but I mean, people need to live their values and recognize that not everyone has the same values as they are, and we need to find a way to be respectful and inclusive.
Yeah, 100%.
And
And different perspectives are important. If it's someone making burgers at wherever, doesn't necessarily matter their values as long as they're keeping the food clean and getting the job done. That's something I just think is important. And I hear a lot of talk about this stuff. And, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we don't get swarmed out. I mentioned this because you talk about it's a global scenario. On a global scale, it's so impersonal. Like right now, we're entering one of the most competitive eras of humanity, where essentially if you do business online, you're competing with a teenager with a laptop in a basement in China. And so on a global scale where your competitors are nameless and faceless, you have to you have to do everything you can to be hyper competitive. And in some cases, it's going to be having a unique perspective and having a more diverse background on your team. I just want to put that out there, that merit, that competitive edge almost has to be number one, because the top 100 companies, that changes constantly. I think if we go back 100 years, 50 years, those aren't the same companies. So it's really tough to stay at the top. And that's all. So where do you think things are going with AI and the advent of technology and people being worried about jobs being replaced and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
I believe we should all be using AI to remove the drag, remove the components that can be done, and we can't even begin to imagine how things are going to change, and use our knowledge and our skills and our innately humanness, is that a word?
Humanity.
Yeah, I mean, so that we can be human, investing time in coaching, decision making, curiosity, conversations. Those are the things that AI is going to change. Jobs that we didn't know existed or that did not exist, how we do our jobs, it will change everything. But I think we also need to remind people that automation has been around for a very long time. It's really just generative AI that is what is new, and so much is changing faster than we can even learn it. And I think we just need to buckle up because things are remain curious and learn new skills and be a lifelong learner and be human. I mean,
Mm.
and learn how to use AI.
Yeah.
That's the advice I give my kids.
Yep. Yeah. I think you're right. I agree with that. I think you're right. When the tractor came out, they said we wouldn't need farmers. When calculators came out, we won't need mathematicians. When spreadsheets came out, we're not going to need accountants. When QuickBooks came out, we're not going to need CPAs. We've been replacing humans supposedly forever. And what really happened is the productive people became more productive. The non-productive people who couldn't perform weren't the
Or
best
didn't
people for the
choose to
job.
upskill.
Sure. But no longer were the best people for the job. They had to
Yes.
reskill somehow and get back in somehow else. And that's why we're already cyborgs. You and I are talking on different parts of the world, different times of day. And I don't know how this works. Everything that we've done has been built on people that came before us. I have no idea. What is it? I think Joe Rogan said this. If I left you in the woods with a lighter and a knife, how long till you come back with a smartphone? Like none of this stuff. I don't know how any of this stuff works. I talk into this thing and you hear me. That's fantastic.
And I can see you across the world 12 time zones away.
Yeah. So it's one of the best times to be alive, I think. Despite the trials and tribulations, we've got more power, more control, more access. All our diseases are diseases of excess right now. We have excessive rest, we have excessive calories, we have excessive everything. And that's part of what's causing us
I
ills
never
right
thought of it like that. That's really interesting. That's so true.
now. Yeah, when we're excessively sedentary, we have an excessive amount of calories and food and options. Marriage is down because if I can order vagina like pizza, why do I need to just choose one? So it's just a weird time to be alive where it comes back to values. And I think that that's a really good place to make sure that it comes back to values and to taking care of the people around us. Because at the end of the day, if you think of a town, someone that lives in a small town that knows their neighbors, knows everyone, we love that kind of concept of belonging to a community. But if you think of someone that lives in a big apartment complex, they don't even know who their neighbors are. Live in a big condo, you come and go, you don't know any of those people. They're all strangers.
True. It certainly can be true. So yeah, I think that, to just bring it back home is investing in leaders, investing in people who can customize their communications, customize their style. It's not about treating everyone the same. It's
Hmm.
about knowing what motivates one person versus someone else, what makes someone feel valued versus someone else, and building the systems to reinforce that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what engagement is. That's how you build your business.
Yeah. I love that. Can you speak to that a little bit when you say engagement? So what is engagement? Because as an HR professional, I know that engagement is like a hot topic, but if you're not HR, and you also said something else,
Engagement,
regrettable. You also said another term, regrettable. What was the term?
regrettable turnover.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Can you define some of these terms for people that I
Sure,
think are important
absolutely.
to know?
Okay. So, regrettable turnover. Sometimes someone leaves your organization, they resign, and no one is actually upset about it. You can
Mm.
just replace them with someone else. This person was doing a fine job, but was not making a big enough impact either in terms of what their actual work deliverables and contributions were or to the team. And so I don't want to say no one cared,
Yeah,
but it's okay. It's
yeah.
fine. It's part of business. There are regrettable turnover is when someone who you think is really talented, someone who you think has a lot of potential to excel in the organization, to move through levels in the organization, someone who is a culture carrier for your organization and other people look to. Those are regrettable. Yes, you can replace the person potentially. I mean, everybody's replaceable. You can replace the person, but it's that human that you wish was still working
Mm.
there. So that is regrettable turnover. And engagement is, look, we all have to show up for work. You can do the bare minimum, or you can really aim to contribute at your maximum potential and maximum capacity.
Mm.
And when someone has psychological safety, which may be another term I need to define, but when someone has psychological safety, they feel safe in their work environment. They feel that they can speak up. They feel that they can question things. They feel that they can call the baby ugly, if you will, in the workplace. When someone feels valued, included, that they belong in the organization, that their thoughts are welcome, that person will give more than the bare minimum.
Mm.
It ties to retention with the organization. It ties to output. It ties to productivity. It ties to just general joy in the workplace. There's a direct correlation between employee engagement, how much an employee cares to do a good job, to work for that particular organization,
Mm.
and their profitability.
How do
Can
we
you
grow?
imagine an organization with low morale where everybody's walking around moaning all day long, being really exceptionally successful by other metrics?
Right.
No, it doesn't ever happen.
It's interesting because again, all a company is a group of people that solve the pain of another group of people and they do it via a product or service.
Correct.
And so those people can show up and spread joy and cheer, or they can show up and suck your soul out of you. And we've all had experiences with different companies that did differently. And I think that
Yes.
that's, it comes at the end of the day, it comes back to tapping into people's values, their own spark, and figuring out how to align their spark with the company's values and missions, and keeping everything flexible and sort of lighthearted in a sense, while remaining as competitive as possible, finding joy
Yes to
in that
all.
grind. Yeah. I love this. Rachel, this has been a great talk. I've got like a page of notes here. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I mean, I feel like you and I could go back and forth for a really long time, but I think we've covered everything.
And if people have questions, if they want to follow, if they want to learn more, what are some of the best ways for them to get in touch?
Absolutely. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I post most business days on leadership topics, people strategy, something that's making me laugh that day. So you can always find me there, Rachel Platt with two T's, the same way that platinum is spelled with two T's. You can find me on platinumconsulting.com, and book a meeting there. And I would be happy to chat with any of your listeners about how to make their organization's employee engagement increase, which will therefore increase their retention and all of those key factors that we have talked about throughout this entire conversation.
So go check out platinumconsulting.com, Plattinum, platinumconsulting.com. You can also look up Rachel Platt, Platt, on LinkedIn. Rachel, thank you again for coming and sharing
Thank you,
with us.
Daryl.
It's been an honor and a pleasure knowing you have your own direct reports, your own clients, your own priorities. Thank you for coming and sharing with my audience tonight so we can all do better.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Take care.